Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, May 6th, 2024. My name is John Pieranunzi, and this is the opening swing. Let's begin today, like we always do, by discussing our news. Not really a ton of news today. It's the Monday after non-farm. There was nothing out of Europe. Today is a UK bank holiday, so nothing there. Out of the US, we have Barkin at 12.50 and Williams at 1. Short-term treasury auctions are the only other thing on the calendar. Excuse me. And like I said, it's the Monday after non-farm. It's also, we're getting into May. So this is a time where kind of traditionally we expect that things may be a little bit slower. But anything could happen. Let's take a look at a higher time frame chart. This is our monthly. We're just going to check in with our monthly chart, full session monthly candles. The key here is to just recognize the one time framing higher. Then in April, we had an outside month, which to me kind of signified potential balance or potential slowing of the bullishness. And so far into this month, we see our April low, our April high, and we are actually slightly above the mid of this month. So getting a little bit balancy on the monthly time frame. Let's take a look at the weekly time frame. On the weekly time frame, we see that we've actually been able to resume some higher prices. We're one time framing higher on the weekly. And as of this moment, we are holding above our prior week's high, our Friday high. The next high of interest up here is the 52.13 quarters, which is this high, which is one we've talked about. So this is what we're looking at on the weekly chart. Weekly is trying to grind higher. Looking at our daily chart, this is a lot of ground we've been over. The key thing to recognize here is our impulse lower found a news low, found buyers, and began sort of grinding up higher. The first key area that we were talking about here were the 26s. We were able to breach that area, hold the higher lows, push higher to make a new balance high of 54 halves, again pull back, hold the balance lows, and as of now we are above our prior balance and trying to continue. So the keys to recognize on the daily chart here are just our former areas, our former sort of highs, which we are above, and the prices above that we're curious about, which are, I have 92s marked here. It's really the 85s I'm looking at. 85s up to about 13 halves, with the 51.50 area sort of being the initial LIS for holding above our prior balance or continuing higher. As noted, the 51.50 there's a lot of confluence there. It's the prior month's mid, it's last week's settle, it's our prior balance high. So there's a lot of that's an area to be aware of. Let's go to a lower time frame chart and start to get a bit more granular. Okay, here on the 2-hour chart, we're really just going to reiterate a lot of what we were looking at on the daily. Just focusing in on this push higher, which created our new balance high of 54s. The pullback found buyers, and now we're back above. The 41 halves were a key price on Friday. That was one that we really focused on. If we got a push higher on Friday, it was a double TPO high. And what we were looking for was if we could get above and hold above the 41 halves, we would look for trades into 54s, potentially 67s. And that plan was good enough. To get us into some trades, so it worked out. Today, what we're looking at here, we have our non-farm SOC, which was not retested during RTH. That's down at 51 or 51.08 half. Here we have Friday's RTH low in confluence with the 26 halves. Up here in this band, I have this band from 37 to 43. The key area in it is the 41 halves. Above it, we have our 54 half settle and the prior month's mid that we've discussed. The Friday's RTH high, 66.75, and then we get into this area that we were talking about here, looking at the 85s, 98s ahead of Century, and then that weekly high we're looking at of 13 half. Key to recognize, first thing to recognize here, settlement is open, guys. Settlement's open, so that matters. Let's take a look at the 8 box and discuss price action. Okay, here we have the 8 box. I know some people out there like to hear the word 8 box. It's kind of a funny word. Okay, key things. The first key here, we're going to go over a bullish scenario because we're above settlement. So the first recognition we have today, settlement is open. We are above the prior day's high. So for me, the key here is if we can hold settlement open, then I will obviously look for excursion higher. Let's go over first the 2 ways that excursion higher could happen. First, we always kind of go over these ways. We could get a push lower at some point that potentially pushes back into the prior day's range, maybe into or below full session levels, but finds support ahead of settlement, reverts higher, takes the overnight high, and then potentially sort of begins a grinding sort of just trend higher. So if we get this grinding trend, if we get that, so that could be a test lower, potentially back into the prior range that continues higher for the overnight high. Obviously, this could also happen just with a push higher that initially just goes to like around the 85s, pulls back, and then starts the grind this way. So either way, we could get a pullback, we could not get a pullback, but regardless of which it is, if we get some type of a grinding move or any upward excursion that holds settlement, I would be looking for kind of this sort of a grind. It could get deeper pullbacks, continue up to these targets. So that's one way it could happen. We also could see, it's not out of the question, to see some type of a very quick move up to here, up to around 85s, quick pullback, and then go up. That would be exceptionally bullish. I'm not really expecting that, but I'm flagging that it could happen. We could get just a squirt higher into these levels and then start to hold them, quick pullback, pull back up, and continue. If we get that much energy, like I said, 85s, 98 halves. 98 halves would really be, in my opinion, that would be a pretty good move today. And 13 halves, I wouldn't be looking for it. I think that would be a lot, but it's very possible. So those are kind of some bullish ideas. Now, what happens if we get that and something else happens? So for more bearish ideas, beginning with what could happen, we could get that sort of bullish attempt in one way or another. It starts to look bullish, but then what could happen is we get a pullback that comes up and does not get the prior high. So then if we get that sort of bullish, initial bullish action, then we start to see like lower highs happen. I would look for pullbacks into the prior high to sort of see the strength of the sellers. If the prior high does not provide support, if we're getting lower highs and the prior high does not provide support and we fall back into range, we know what we're looking for, settlement. That would be the key target. If yesterday's high does not hold and we fall back in, be looking for the overnight low, of course, first, and then settlement in this key 5150 area, prior month's mid. This is an area, like I said, which I would expect support on the initial push. So if we get something like this, then we have to recognize the next thing that could happen could be settlement could still remain open, and then we get the reversion higher. Or we could touch settlement and get the reversion higher. If we get that, then we're looking at potentially, are we just going to chop within this range? If we get this test and it comes back, are we going to chop within this range? That's a possibility. We also could resume and get this high again and continue. That's another way things could happen. But if we test higher, test lower, I would start to think there's a good chance that we could just coil today. If we get this like a test higher and a test lower, and that kind of uses up a lot of today's energy, I would be wary of just chop the rest of the day. Now, what happens if we breach settlement? If we breach settlement, we get down into here and we try to recover, but we can't. We can't get back out of range, or maybe we can't even get settlement. Let's draw another one here. So that would be something like an attempt higher, fall, gets back into range, lower high, into settlement. Then if we get into settlement, can't get back out of range or just go lower, the obvious targets are 5150s. And then if 5150s are breached, we are obviously looking for the 41 halves. 41 halves, like I said, on an initial test into the 50s, I would be open to support. I think that depending on how it happens, if we get a 41 half test, it might not see that much support. We might see just kind of a quick. Now we could easily see the support there, but also if we lose settlement and get back into 41 halves, we may see a little bit of a flush lower or just kind of some choppy action in here. We could also see continuation lower. Again, if we get continuation lower through the 41s, I'd be looking for 35s, the bottom of this little zone. And then, of course, the next key area on excursion lower would be the 26 halves. I would expect support ahead of the 26 halves initially, the 26 3/4. I would expect support ahead. So if we do get this push that gets into settlement, falls lower, 41 halves, 41 halves may or may not provide support, but if we see anything close to the 26 halves today, I would expect initial support ahead. And to me, then that would potentially we may then potentially see the chop or whatever happens between 66 and 26 or settlement 54 and 26. So falling below settlement, seeing an attempt towards 26 halves that gets a higher low, then I would start to look at this area as our chop zone for today. If we fall below settlement and get the 41 halves below, and then get a higher low above 26 halves, I would look for. I'm not expecting us to break 26 halves today. I'm not expecting that. However, it's very possible. So let's just discuss. If we get a push into settlement that cannot get back out of range, falls lower, gets the 50s, falls into the 41 halves, gets a little messy here, and then falls. I would expect the support, like I said, initially ahead of 26 halves. But if that support cannot get us back above 41 halves, then we may start to see a sort of slog lower. If we get the slog lower below the 26s, the next key target, like I said, is the 08s. I think this is more range than I would expect today, but it's possible. And of course, if we get any kind of a nothing sort of scenario, as I kind of alluded to, I think the nothing scenario would really happen around this area, which would be kind of like below settlement, above 26 halves. So like I said, that could happen with any kind of a push or a rounded top that falls lower into the prior range. Settlement attempts gets lower into the 41 halves, above the 26s, and then just chops around in here. That would give us, that's still a lot of range. That's why I'm not really expecting the 26 halves. I'm sort of thinking that we'll hold settlement, or if we get below settlement, it'll kind of start to get choppy. But I'm thinking mostly today, these are the important areas. The overnight high, again, we'll go over them quickly, just the important areas before we close here. Current overnight high, it's getting pushed. We have the 85s, and just ahead of century, the 98 halves, 13 halves, potentially for later this week, or if we really get moving. Below here, absolute key to today's trade is settlement in the overnight low. If we get below settlement in the overnight low, we'll expect some support around the 50-50s. If we get lower, the big key is the 41 halves. I'm not really expecting us to push too much below 41 halves, but if we do, 26s are the key. If something crazy happens and we get below the 26 halves, the 08s are. But we want to beware of potential balance in this area. Above settlement, these are the prices. We get into settlement, we think it could get choppier, but if it starts to go lower, these are our targets. All right, guys, I'm going to try to wrap it up. A little bit of production issues today, so I'm sorry about that. This is like take 3. But I want to let everybody know that I've started to, we have some new software we're going to start to use. So hopefully all of this will get smoother and we'll be able to give you guys a better look. A lot of what's happening now, it's like, it's a little difficult because I'm trying to make the plans, but I'm also dealing with some software issues. But like I said, we're a work in progress, just like everybody. But now I'm going to close it here. I wish everyone the best. I hope that you can find a way to improve your trading today, be a little bit better than you were on Friday. I also hope that you just have a wonderful day today, and that, as always, you can make somebody else smile and just do good stuff out there in the world. But as for the next 8 hours or so, let's clock some ticks. Let's do that. Have a great day, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.